Is that time?
A story a day, brought to you by Safaricom Gigabundle.
That's right, and my guest today for to tell us his story. He's already smiling and laughing. Sonstar Peterson is back in town, folks, and you need to listen to this man's story because the man has a story to tell. Good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure. People need to hear stories, and you have a story. So, you're back in town.
Yes, sir. I want to say, first of all, before we even get started, it's an honor. It's a pleasure to be with you. As I told you, I ran into you really briefly. Wow, this is going back, what, 4 years ago?
At least 4 years,
yeah. When they
the launch of
the premiered Leo.
Yeah,
with our friend Gina.
Yeah,
she had produced that.
Tuma, yes.
And I also want to say, I mean, I think Kenyans already know this, but for everybody listening, I think that Jeff Kunange is a world-class act. When it comes to this media space, reporting, news, I've been here in this nation for practically 7 years. Just seeing you operate, television. Now seeing you here in the studio, and you guys make it all look so easy. I mean, sitting in front of the camera is one thing. Sitting behind the board and seeing you doing your thing, you truly are a world-class act.
I appreciate it, man.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Appreciate that. I got a great team here, man. Great team.
Yes.
You should see the teamwork, especially since I've been flying solo. That's another story. We can talk about that another time, but. Welcome. I mean, I'm glad you've been here. And people come to Kenya and they fall in love with Kenya.
Of course, it's a beautiful nation. It's an amazingly beautiful.
Despite our challenges, despite our politics, despite our madness, if you will.
Well, I guess madness is all over the world right now. Sometimes I get frustrated because, international news makes it look like these things are only happening in Africa. I think in some places they learn how to mask it a bit better. But the reality is that all over the world right now, there's a lot of craziness, and that's why I think that's the reason why people like me exist, because in the midst of all of that, my assignment is to, give people hope. That's, at the end of the day, everybody needs to be able to have that hope, that encouragement that says I can go from what is going on now to that next place. I can actually make it, because there's no success story in this life, no real success story that does not have, challenges with it. And the challenges make you stronger if you approach it with the right attitude. So, yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for being a heritage of Africa, a descendant of the continent of Africa. And of course, I was born in the island of Barbados. Barbados is a peculiar place with regards to the entire transatlantic slave trade, because Barbados has the dubious reputation in history. First of all, we are situated as the most easterly island in the Caribbean. So that means that when you come across the Atlantic, it is actually the first landmass that you come to when you come into the Americas. And so that's where they used to bring slaves, and they would go about some of the worst, atrocious types of methods in order to break the slave psychologically. These guys would do things like, taking a strong warrior-looking slave and tying him to 4 horses by his 4 extremities, hands and feet, and while other slaves are looking on, they would smack those horses and make them go in 4 directions, literally splitting that slave over. Or, for example, they would take females, cut the fetus out of their bellies when they were pregnant, smash their heads on the ground, things like that, to psychologically send a message to say, don't you ever think about uprising or escape or anything like that. So that's the island where I was born. Barbados was an amazing island, but here's the thing, the Caribbean is in the same tropical belt as Kenya. So when I came here, it was not unusual to see the various plants, the foliage, everything you have here, even the fruits, the mangoes, you name it. My favorite fruit, I don't even know what they call it in Kenya, but we call it a sugar apple. It's this green, looking fruit with little figs and little black seeds on the inside of it. It is so sweet. But everything you have here, and the one thing that I've always prayed for this nation about, is that Kenyans would know exactly what you really do have. This is an amazing, beautiful nation and needs to be taken care of.
Absolutely. Well put, well put, well put. And people from Barbados are called Bajans?
Bajans, Barbadians.
Yeah, I've heard it all, exactly. but original Bajans, they call themselves, they say it's Bajans.
Yeah, both, yeah.
How would you describe your music?
Me, my music is very eclectic, very, very eclectic. Again, being born in the Caribbean, you always had the influences of so many different types of music, and all of our music, at the end of the day, starts with Africa. Everything begins with the sounds of West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa. I was shocked. My first time going to South Africa was in 1990, and when I heard the music there coming out of what they call, the shebeens, the little spots where people would go and dance, I was shocked that I was listening to what was actually the roots of reggae music, which comes through what Jamaicans call ska, then rock steady. But that music is indigenous to South Africa. It was like, wow, and so calypso, which has fused into soca, all of these rhythms you can hear in my music. But then on top of that, being in the Caribbean, we were always influenced by funk, R&B coming out of the US, and then the Latin countries. So for me, it is hard to, describe my music in one particular lane. I like to experiment. I like to be creative, and so yeah, that's what I do. I draw from all of these strings and just let it rip. And of course, my main reason for what I do is to get that message out, to get that message of positivity, get that message of the gospel out there. That's what I do.
I love that message too. Let's kick it off. Let's just hear what that music is all about.